thanks for watching Numbskull News, and today it's the 4th of July, so happy 4th. Let's start with that. Those people who have served, are serving, or are going to serve, thank you very much for your service, of course. Well, this video, we're talking about revenue sharing and death of California recruiting. Of course, we all know California is one of the top states in recruiting, and really, I kind of came to this video because, I'd heard revenue sharing in college football is coming. There's a court case out there. Can't remember the name of it. You can Google it yourself. Don't care. But all the people in the know, all the main speculation from the so-called experts, they all say that revenue sharing is going to be a reality within 2 to 3 years. And that as a Big 12 fan, I was a little scared with that. I'm like, this is trouble. What does that look like? How much revenue are these players going to get? Is this going to screw the programs in the Big 12? Because the SEC and the Big 10, of course, they make ass tons of money. They could probably rather easily afford revenue sharing. But the Big 12, at least right now, does not make that kind of money. I think they have the potential to make some way more money in the future. And of course, there's no details because we're not there yet. We're not in the future yet. Nothing's been written or passed in the law federally or any other through the NCAA or anything else. However, the state of California, of course, the wonderful, crappy, communist, suck-ass government of California have already jumped on the revenue sharing thing. Their revenue sharing model is going to be put into place in the year 2024. So starting in 2024, California will have revenue sharing. And it's not just revenue sharing, because of course not. You don't just regulate a little bit if you're California. You wrap your hands and squeeze the life out of whatever you're going to regulate. This is the problem with the state of California and its politics, and that is about to seep into their athletics full force. So, overall, though, I wanted to see the numbers, because that is a revenue sharing plan that is now in place. Well, not in place, but has passed and would be put into place in 2024. Well, the basics are the student athlete could be paid up to $25,000. Now, I don't know if this is for their entire length of time in college or per year. Didn't really specify. I'm thinking they're still working out ironing out all the details. Now, this could be more for athletes who complete their undergrad within 6 years, which is weird to me. That means they actually get money past the time, because it's 6 years from their enrollment in the college. So you only got so much eligibility to play sports. So this apparently goes past that, which is kind of crazy. But when I saw 25,000, I'm guessing that's for like a blue chip starter, top shelf guy. And, that's not that much. That's not crazy money. Now, other players down the line will be making less, whether it's 15, 10, 5, whatever it is, depending on who they are and what they qualify for. This is still going to be an ass ton of money because you're talking about, how many players does a football team have? Not everyone, of course, is suited. There's only so many players you can suit for game day. But the program could have, over 100 players. So that's kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts. And it will be a lot of money. Now, USC and UCLA getting that Big Ten money easily afford that. But that is going to really screw San Diego State and, let's say, Fresno State, But their revenue model is going to be different. It's based off of $6 million a year versus $60 million a year. So that number is a little skewed. I'm not sure where they're pulling that because different conferences make different money, But it kind of gave me an idea of what we're looking at with revenue sharing, and it's going to be a colossal price tag. It really is. And at first thought, my first thought was like, oh no, the Big 12 is totally screwed when it comes to revenue sharing. And it's going to hurt, but they'll be paying far less to their athletes than someone like a Ohio State or an Alabama. Those schools will have to pay top dollar because they're making top dollar. It's based on the revenue of that particular conference. And really, you could say, well, see, there's a huge gap. Big 12 can't compete. Well, there's already a huge gap. There's already a huge gap. TCU is not going to out recruit a guy who's also being recruited by Alabama or by Georgia or hell, Texas, OU. You're not going to recruit, though. You're not going to out recruit Ohio State or Michigan if you're TCU. Sometimes you may be able to steal a player. Certain circumstances or whatever, you might be able to steal a player. Deion Sanders has stolen a lot of players from a lot of top universities. Ask Nick Saban. He was rather pissed off about that. He didn't like one of these HBCUs coming in there and taking one of his recruits. He didn't like that. So, depending on who you are and all that, special circumstances, like I said, you can out-recruit them. So, in some areas, but overall, you're not out-recruiting them. Deion's not going to out-recruit Alabama. That's not going to happen. Now, if he starts winning, maybe it's different. But winning in Colorado, that might change some things there. But for the most part, all these other schools, you're not out recruiting any of those gigantic programs, and that's right now. So that really doesn't change anything, because there will be an advantage to going to a Big Ten school or to an SEC school, because the student athlete will make way more money. What this can affect is your 2 or 3 star guys, or guys who are not ranked in that star thing. And if they get an offer from Rutgers versus TCU, they may go to Rutgers because it's instant money in their pocket and more money versus going to TCU. So it can expand some of the disadvantages that the Big 12 have over those two conferences. And that could be a hard pill to swallow. However, the new TV deal will come up in 2031. If you can get that money up where the revenue gets a little closer, that can help. But we'll see how it goes. Nothing's set in stone yet. But it does give me some reason for concern for the Big 12 later on. Even though there's already advantages of the two big conferences over the Big 12, this could possibly increase those disadvantages, or it may end up staying about the same. But because right now, look, if you're a recruit, do you want to go to Vanderbilt, or would you rather go to Baylor or Texas Tech or TCU or Oklahoma State? I think I'd choose one of the Big 12 schools, really. But in the future, Vanderbilt can offer you more money just through the revenue sharing. See what I'm saying? So that kind of sucks. Because that knocks some of your advantages out. It could. There may be kids out there that say, look, I'm still getting, I still get $12,000 a year or whatever the number may be from TCU, and maybe I would get more like 20 from Vanderbilt, but it's Vanderbilt. I'd rather be over here. I don't know. It just depends. It's annoyingly confusing, but I have to acknowledge there could be some trouble there for the Big 12 in the future. However, starting in 2024, there will be a lot of trouble for California and how their model works. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to create an oversight panel, for lack of a better word for it, that will have subpoena power in the state. So it's going to have actual law enforcement component to it. All right, so something with teeth. And the panel itself will be paid by those schools in California up to $7 million. So they're planning on doing some real work. Now, they say it's a lot about player safety and all this. Trust me, California doesn't care about player safety. They don't care about homeless people. They don't care about drug-addicted people. They don't really care about minorities or anyone else. They only care about lining their own pockets with money, all the people in power there. Keep that in mind. That they may try to dress it up, make it sound good. It ain't. Because they don't really care about who they say they care about. All right, and the huge thing is they're going to replace the letter of intent in California. They don't like that it binds a kid to a school. So the California letter of intent won't be so binding. Where they're going to run into a lot of trouble as far as California recruiting is the out-of-state schools. Out-of-state schools coming into California to recruit California. They're going to have to sign up and submit to this bureaucracy that's going to be set up, this oversight panel. They're going to have to pay money to do that. They're not going to do it for free. All right, the in-state schools have to pay this panel. So in order for you to use the panel, have the privilege to use their oversight panel, you will have to pay for it. And you'll have to use the new letter of intent, which, I mean, think about it. If you're Alabama, okay, you got to pay money to come into the state of California to recruit. You can go into Texas, you can go into Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Nebraska, New York. You can go anywhere in the country, Oregon, Washington, anywhere, any state in the country, if you're Alabama and you can recruit. And by the way, you have a huge advantage on recruiting over a lot of people just from the name value and all the success that program has had and all the kids they put into the NFL. So top shelf recruits want to go to Alabama, or they're at least going to have them high up on their board. So then you got California. And by the way, you don't have to pay to recruit. You don't have to submit to some stupid panel or any other bullshit. You can just go and recruit your guys. But in California, now you got to go in there and you got to submit to all their regulatory bullshit. You got to do everything they say do. You got to pay whatever money they say pay. And then when you find a kid that you want who wants to come to your school, okay, you bust out your little new California letter of intent. That's what you'll have to use, which is not binding. There's a problem. Because, let's say the Alabama collective, NIL collective, say, okay, let's give this kid a 5-star top whatever, let's say quarterback or what. Let's give him $30,000. Whoa, we're going to give him $30,000 and he may not even come here? Because that letter of intent won't have any teeth to it. So you'll say you pay the kid $30,000, he signs his California letter of intent, and then maybe whatever, before he actually goes to that school and registers with that school or whatever, let's say he backs out. Says, you know what? USC offered me $30,000 plus, I get whatever the revenue sharing is, so I'm just going to go there. All right, but thanks for the 30 grand. Does he have to give it back? I doubt they'll make that happen. Hey, that's your problem. You gave him the money. You should have gave him the money. And that's going to be the stickler there. That's going to be the stickler for a lot of these big schools: Alabama, Georgia, Texas, OU, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Oregon and Washington. Whoever, the big ass schools, do you really want to go into California and deal with all that shit? You know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like one time, one of the trips I had to have a family out in California. One of my nieces coming out to visit, and before she got, a few weeks before that, before she came out, she called me and she's like, "Hey, my husband really wants one of these Sega shotguns, right? It's one of those shotguns that have a clip, kind of cool." And he says, "But the thing is, in California, it's illegal to buy one. It's illegal to sell one, but you can own one." Okay, weird, but okay. She's like, "Hey, can you go to a gun store or two, see if you can find one, tell me how much they are, and we'll see if we can't get it for him." I'm like, okay. So I went to one of the big gun stores here in town, and I asked about Sega shotguns. We're sold out, but they can get it here by the time she gets here. Cool. $1,000 for a shotgun. $1,000 for a shotgun. I was like, damn. I hope he really wants this thing. So I'm going over the order form and all that. And then, because he doesn't mind holding one for me because they sell like hotcakes. So if mine changes, who cares? He'll sell it within a day. But he starts asking me questions, and it just sounds conversational. But I think, these guys aren't stupid. He's like, well, I'm like, yeah, my niece is coming into town, and, her husband wants this shotgun, so I want to get it for him. And he says, where's she coming from? I'm like, oh, California. He literally, I'm writing on the paper. He says, "Excuse me, sir," and he takes the paper from my hand. He takes the paper and says, "Sir, I'm not selling a gun to a California resident, period. And I'm like, why? I didn't get it because, I don't deal in guns. I don't buy a bunch of guns. I don't really, I don't live in that world. Even though I'm in Texas, even though I'm a Second Amendment guy, I just, I'm not a gun fan. I just don't know about the stuff. And he informed me that, well, in California, for me to sell to a California resident, I got to go through the Attorney General's office in California. There's all these regulations, all this shit. If something goes wrong, it can cost me. And he was worried about his gun license. He's worried about, all this stuff. So obviously, if he's worried about his license to sell weapons and he's a weapons seller, he's not going to, it's like selling beer to a minor. You don't want to sell a beer to a minor because then there goes your alcohol permit and you're screwed. You're out of business. That's what he was worried about. He's like, look, man, I could probably do it, but it's a pain in the ass. And I got clientele from all over the country that I sell to. I just don't sell to California. I don't need to sell to California. I make plenty of money to stay in business and prosper without anybody from California. He's like, screw that. I don't sell to California people at all. Nothing against your niece, nothing against her husband, anyone else. I'm just not going to do that because I'm not dicking with the state of California and their insane laws. It could adversely affect me and I'm not going to do it. So I was like, okay, no problem, man. Sorry about wasting your time. So I left, called my niece, say, hey, man, can't get the gun. And I told her, and she's like, that fucking figures. So let's just say now they have moved to Oregon. They got done with this shit. And yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's going to happen, right? Is these big universities all throughout the country are going to like, okay, California's just not worth it. And what's going to end up happening, because there is quite a few 4 and 5 star guys that come out of California. It's been a great recruiting state for a long time. What you're going to find happening is these kids are going to get representation. They're going to have agents, when they're the top shelf high school players in California. And they're going to be told, look, if you want to just go to USC or UCLA, don't worry about it. If you want to go to Fresno State or San Diego State, don't worry. If you got the grades and you want to go to Cal or Stanford, okay. But if you really want to open yourself up to recruiting, national recruiting, you're a junior, you're about to be a junior in high school, we need to get you in a high school in Oregon. We need to get you to Nevada. We need to get you to Arizona. All right. Maybe Seattle area. We need to get you somewhere else. All right. That way you can be recruited by the entire country, by all the conferences, and really open up your opportunities on where we can go. All right. Because when you're a 4 or 5 star guy, you got opportunities nationwide, at least if you're in any other state. When this crap goes into effect for California kids, their opportunities are going to dry up. Because there's going to be a lot of schools that just, or total conferences that just don't want to screw with the state of California. And even other Big Ten schools ain't going to want to screw with the recruiting out there once this goes into effect. So, and look, we've seen this here in Texas. I'm sure it's happened in other states, but Texas, of course, Friday Night Lights, high school football has been huge here forever. And a lot of these schools have direct pipelines into college recruiting. All right, these are some of the first schools that big-time programs throughout the country look at in Texas at some of these Texas high schools. And over again, we found that, hey, this, they got 3 or 4 players coming that are playing on, whatever high school. I could name a few, but I'm not going to. There's a few. Some of these big-time high school programs will have players, out-of-state players, 4 or 5 out-of-state players, right? That just started, maybe their senior year, maybe their junior year, started going to that high school. And it was a little bit of a controversy back in the day because it's like, okay, where are your parents? They're living like with a booster's family or something like that. I mean, they worked it out, and I'm not sure. I mean, it still goes on. It still goes on. People still bitch about it if you're not one of those big programs. But what do? It's kind of tough to figure it out because the kid is living somewhere. The parents know the kid's living with like a booster or maybe a family member in that particular ISD. Uh, so what do you do? And I think that's what you'll start to see. You'll start to see an exodus of top shelf recruited players going into other states, neighboring states, where it's not such a pain in the ass for the Alabamas and the Texases and the Georgias of the world to come in and recruit those guys and get the guys there. And for guys who aren't that, maybe the 2 or 3 star guys, may not have that same opportunity. And so what really sucks for them is, even if you're, TCU or Baylor or UCF or Cincinnati or whoever in the Big 12, is it really worth dealing with all this bullshit in California and to get like a 2-star guy or a 3-star guy? No. There's plenty of those in the state of Texas, in the state of Oklahoma, surrounding states, Missouri, Louisiana, New Mexico. You could find 2 and 3-star kids or even unranked kids that have some potential. And these schools do that, beautifully now. They really do. If you're in the Big 12, that's part of the deal because you're not Alabama. So you gotta you're gonna get lower level kids, but can you build them up? And the best coaches in the Big 12 do a phenomenal job of building those guys up. So as far as going into California for a 2 or 3-star guy, that's not going to happen. Would you go through all that bullshit for a 5-star guy? You might, but are you going to pay him? I mean, Alabama's not going to pay him because they don't know if they're going to get him. Like an Alabama collective. What if it's a TCU collective or a Texas Tech collective? Would they pay money for that kid and they still don't? It's a California letter of intent with, it doesn't hold the kid to your school. What are you going to do? You going to pay that kid? Probably not. Let's find another kid. Maybe he's not a 5-star. Maybe he's a 3 or 4-star. But we know he'll, if he signs the letter of intent, he's coming here. He's playing for us. We know we got him for a season before he can transfer. At least that. So, yeah, this is going to be a major problem for California recruiting. The future of NIL is very uncertain. That's all I'll tell you. Anyone out there that says how it's going to work with NCAA and revenue sharing later on down the line is full of shit. But there's some decent speculation out there, but we'll see when it gets here. I just wanted to take kind of a peek at what's coming down the pipeline there. And that was my biggest takeaway is California and these schools are screwed. Oregon and Washington, they do a phenomenal job of recruiting California, and they're about to get screwed out of a lot of that. I mean, they'll probably have no choice but to sign up for all of this, but it's going to be a huge pain in the ass and a detriment for them. But they'll have to recruit California. They don't have a choice. It's not like Oregon has this big, pipeline into Texas or into Florida. They need California recruiting. So in a lot of different ways, that's going to be an issue for a lot of those schools out there. And it's the biggest reason for me. The Big 12, stay the hell away from any California school. Do not expand with a California school. Not San Diego State. Oh, there's San Diego, great market. They're in California, and California is completely fucked. Don't screw with California schools. Period. If you're the Big 12, there's many different ways, many different areas you can expand into. California, stay the hell away from. California sucks, and it's about to suck a whole lot more. Stay away. That's all I'm saying. If you're the Big 10, you might have some buyer's remorse here soon. That's even though it's USC and UCLA, it's market. Eventually, for the Big 10, that will be buyer's remorse with those two schools. I guarantee you it will be, because it's going to end up a big freaking headache for the Big Ten. California will make it that. Thank God we're in Texas. Or anywhere else than California. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.